Hello everybody, here we are live again on Wednesday. It's just gone 12 noon. If you're out there and you want to give me a shout, say hello. Love to hear from you. If not, then by all means just follow along. I'm sorry my hair's starting to look a little bit of a mess because I haven't been to a barber in a long time. Today's an exciting day for me, so I'm hoping to share it with a few of you, with some friends, and hopefully you're having a good, happy hump day. Who knows how people are feeling right now? I'm just adjusting my screen here. Seem a little bit dark in here today. Anyway, hope you are all able to be safe and sheltering in place and enjoying your splendid isolation like I am. I'm feeling a little bit lonely here. But I guess that's to be expected. I mean, it's that time of, it's been a few weeks that we've been sheltering in place here in California. And so, yeah, it is a bit lonely, a bit isolating. But like I said, I mean, I like the idea of the sort of splendid isolation. And it really makes me feel kind of like, I'm in a good spot here. And a lot of it is to do with, with, I guess, attitude, mindset. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today because I don't know if, actually, I've kind of been yelled at by the admins of all of the widows support groups that I'm a member of. And so I won't be pushing these daily talks out onto those membership groups because they've asked me not to self-promote, which I guess technically I have been doing, so I apologize to those of you who are members of those groups and who, hey Tisha, nice to see you, Bob, Lillian, hopefully you're safe and sheltering in place over there in England. Hi Christy, love to see you, lovely to see you. So today's kind of focus for me was really going to talk about mindset and how I've been approaching this whole sheltering in place and what I like to describe as my splendid isolation. And it really does come through from my mindset. And mindset is really, really important, especially in this sort of time frame when we're bombarded with news stories and a lot of negativity, and it's hard to separate, your time in a way that is constructive. So, from a practical point of view, it's really about your mindset. And I know a lot of the times I refer to widows and widowers as like sort of my primary target audience for these talks. And it's true we are, because oftentimes, even when we have young children in our homes with us, we feel really alone, right? And really isolated. It's hey Anthony, I hope you're feeling a little bit better. I hope the ticker's doing okay. Appreciate your text this morning. I'm sorry I haven't responded to you. I've been working on some other stuff, but I will get back with you. This whole thing about mindset is really important. And I think I mentioned the other day that I had written an ebook, and the ebook that I wrote is now available. It's on my website. I've put the link in here to the free downloads, but also there's a link on there to the actual download of my ebook and worksheets and stuff. It's about mind reset, okay? Because we all have a really nice mindset most of the time. A lot of us can feel that we're not really, in the right frame of mind. And this book is about sort of resetting your mind into a better place, into a better kind of mindset. A little like the work that I've done for myself and my journey since becoming a widower in 2018. And I went through some of this stuff that I've written about. And one of the things that I want to talk about today in terms of mind resetting and mind setting is what is called metacognition. And what that means, I mean, it sounds like a really weird term, but metacognition is really just thinking about thinking, or being cognitive about cognition, right? So when I talk about thinking, it comes back to what I talked about earlier in the week as well. Like when we're standing in the shower and we're thinking about things and we're kind of futurescaping, or we're going over things in the past that we wished we'd said or we wished we had done, and all those sorts of things. That's when metacognition really comes into play, because I talked about Eckhart Tolle talking about and writing about being an observer of your own thoughts. And metacognition is really about thinking about your own thoughts and how they can be helpful to you, and how turning the sort of negative thoughts that we have into more powerful, positive thoughts. So, from that perspective, and that's what I've kind of written about in my book is, questions you can ask yourself as you're thinking negative things. Well, why am I thinking this? Or why can't I think about something more positive? And there are some strategies in there that I've employed myself, and there's some, other information in there. There's also some resources and stuff like that I talk about, but which I don't want to get into too much detail here. But, basically what I wanted to talk about is this whole idea of mindset and mind resetting. So, from my point of view, and my experience, and obviously I'm talking from my own personal perspective here, and I can't really talk to you about your perspective or your feelings or your experience, but I would like to say, what I've done, the work that I've done, and the things that have challenged me are probably the same things that have challenged a lot of other people, particularly my fellow widows and widowers who have to sort of completely reassess, their life, their thinking patterns, their whole sort of existence, really. I understand, that it's hard, because it was really hard work for me. It took a long time and a lot of, like I say, deep diving to get to a point where, I really feel like I live from my heart, and I don't overthink things anymore, or at least I try not to. I still do. I still think about things that, and dwell on things that I have no control over. And that's hard not to do, particularly at this point in time when we're all kind of stuck in and we're kind of alone, and and dealing with this whole shelter in place thing. So, when I say that resetting your mind is really imperative, it really is, and this is a really good time to start doing that. And actually, I'm thinking about it now, in my thinking about my thinking. I meant to actually add a couple of extra resources into the resources guide that I created. So I'm going to do that and upload that. So there'll be a new copy up there later today. But that one of the resources that I like to use is meditation. And a lot of people ask me about meditation and what meditation is. And Christy, I know you say that when I touch my nose, it means that I'm not telling the truth, but I actually just have an itchy nose. So, so I hope you don't mind me scratching my nose, although I'm trying to avoid touching my face. It's basically, meditation can be very rewarding in a lot of ways. And when I talk about meditation, I'm not talking about sitting on your, backside and stopping all of your thinking, right? Because in actual fact, and I think if you've ever seen anything about meditation, it's impossible to stop thinking, right? To completely clear your mind. It never happens. It's really impossible. So, so meditation in and of itself is is a pretty good thing, but you kind of got to learn to do it first. And it took me a long time to actually realize that, there's a good way for me to do it, and there's a not so good way for me to do it too. So everybody's different, and everybody's gonna do a different thing or interpret things in a different way. So I have started to put a couple of resources on my resources page about meditation. I need to add a couple more that I forgot to put in there. Last week, I also talked a little bit about the Greater Good Science Center at UC Berkeley, and they have a lot of information, really helpful information about mindset and mind reset as well. And they talk about things, and I believe I saw it on there. It may be a different website where I did some research, but they talk about cognitive behavioral therapy, which I'm not a huge fan of, to be honest. And that's where you kind of you get into a situation where you basically try to replace negative thoughts with positive thoughts, almost artificially. Until you're used to those positive thoughts being the driving factor in your mind. And the reason why I had such a difficult time with it is because they were trying to get me to address my grief around Suzanne's death in a way that I didn't feel comfortable with and couldn't really accept. And that was a clear issue for me. But having said that, I used this metacognition piece for myself and started to change habits around my self-talk, right? And the self-talk, a lot of us have negative self-talk, and particularly widows and widowers, because we really start to question everything. We question everything around our life, around our love, around our ability to live our lives again, in a way that, we want to. Is it possible? Is it feasible to, move forward in our lives? We never move on because that person that we've lost, our person, is always going to be a huge part of us. Hi, Tisha. Nice to see you. Thank you for joining. Because that person is a huge part of us, we can never really move on from that, right? We can move forward and try to, in effect, change our perspective of, life. And that's really what mind resetting and mind shifting is all about. Shifting your mindset is all about. So from a personal perspective, from a personal point of view, and my own experience, I really struggled to change my mindset. It took me a very long time, and a really deep dive. And I mentioned last week about a really good friend teaching me how she described taming her ego, and she basically kind of tried to make friends with it and then get that, like a dog, try to get that ego to heal, right? And I love that visual image of my little internal self, my little Jeffrey, being there, aggressively trying to protect me against everything and anything that could be conceived as a threat, right? But then the real me, the deep-rooted, the true self, capital self that I have and that I am, is just telling little Jeffrey to heal, buddy. Yeah, don't be so overly cautious and protective of the real self here, because oftentimes it's that overprotective nature that causes us to overthink, and it causes us to be hesitant to make changes in our mindset, in our self-talk. So one tip that I can kind of offer, and actually I literally did this, was I recorded some really positive affirmations about myself. I'm a kind, considerate, caring, loving, decent, honest, open person, right? 7 or 8 months ago, that's not how I thought of myself. at all. I actually thought really negatively about myself, really low self-esteem, really, down on myself. And I actually recorded those affirmations in a kind of 5-minute recording, but I did it 3 times, and in different inflections of of the sort of emphasis on certain words, and I listened to that on a loop a few months ago, and funny enough, it really did shift and change my mindset in terms of how I viewed myself, and now I'm a much more positive person. I'm much more open and honest and caring and loving and kind and living from my heart where I wanted to be. It was a really profound shift in my own, internal thinking. And that's what sort of metacognition and cognitive behavioral therapy, which is a more widely accepted type of processes, do. That's what the 2 of those processes do. There is a metacognitive therapy. Sorry, God, that's a mouthful. But it's not as popular as CBT, and I'm not espousing any of these, over the other. If you want to explore any of this stuff, then I would suggest you speak with a therapist or a psychologist or whomever might be your counselor, that sort of thing. They should know about all of these therapies and theories, and it's usually very helpful to to explore the options. And so, like I say, metacognition is my sort of preferred piece, and that's because I did read that Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now book a long time ago, and then I reread it. And on the reread, it's when things really started to click for me, in that, the overthinking, the sort of futurescaping, the living in the past, the dwelling on the past, all of those things needed to shift out of my mind. And that's why I wrote this, this ebook on what I call the mind reset. And that's actually the title of it. And there is a link down below to my free downloads page where I talk a little bit, where I have a free download, kind of 5-minute read about, being more positive in your mindset. And I've also put up that one that I talked about last Monday, the first session, which was around digital minimalism. That's available for free on my free downloads page. There's also a link to the ebook and the resources that I've created, the checklist, the mind map, and the resources booklet, which I'm updating. So wait until maybe this afternoon if you do decide to go and buy it. I just basically decided that, the power of now really is the true power that we have. I've said it a few times, the past is history, the future a mystery, and what we have now is a gift. That's why it's called the present, right? So, that's what that's the sort of jokey, meme-like, people will say that, we have. But really, we only have this moment. We just have now. And living from the moment and in the moment has been a true shift in my mindset. And that's really where, I think the power lies. And it's because of this idea of metacognition, this thinking about my thinking, which is kind of what Eckhart Tolle was talking all about, is really where I really want to be. And, that's my perspective on things, is that if I think about how I think and I identify the negativity and not necessarily replace it with immediate positivity, but think about the negativity differently and change the negative self-talk and move away from that into more positive, thought processes and thinking more positively about, myself, my thoughts, and my future or my past or whatever. Not dwelling on the negative, basically. I think it really does help to, to change your mindset. And that's really where, my kind of, I guess, strength over these last few months has come from. And it has really changed my perception of my world. I often ask people, what's the absolute worst that can happen? If you do something, if you take that first step, if you, as I've alluded to this a few times in my talks that, Dr. Martin Luther King stated once that you don't have to see the whole of the staircase, just take that first step, right? And I have done that, right? I have decided what those first steps were and took those baby steps first, and now I'm taking bigger steps in terms of my own self-development. But realistically, it's a huge challenge to challenge yourself to do that, and it's a huge mind shift to do that. So, so that's kind of my perspective on this, and that's what kind of pushed me to do what I've done personally, and then professionally beyond that. I've made these significant changes in my life, and now, I've created this, this guide based on my own experiences and, some information that I've researched and other things that, I thought would be helpful, and created this ebook. And, I'm kind of proud of myself, but that's just me, I really think that there's, a huge opportunity in this time that we've had, here on our own, in our sort of splendid isolation, to really examine our thought processes and, what normal has been for us, right? A lot of people, and I wrote about it in my personal blog, my Widower's Journey, Widower's Way blog, that, these words like chapter 2s and new normal and stuff are, I'm just going to shut my door here. It's getting noisy outside. The whole idea of a new normal is, it's kind of weird to have that statement as a widower. We don't necessarily want a new normal. I know we have to live one, but what is normal when you're a widower? It's not the same normal that other people experience. It's, nobody experiences the same normal. And, this whole experience that we're going through now, this sheltering in place, this social isolation, social distancing, it's really putting a spotlight on mind shifts and on, shifting the way we think and the way we act and the way we interact, not just with each other, but with the earth and with, organizations, government, everything. Everything is changing. So, despite the I guess I don't want to say, I'll say dislike that I have for that term, new normal, we're all entering a new normal now. Everybody is entering that stage. So it's not just, us widows and widowers who are entering a new normal. And I really think that that's a huge opportunity for us as human beings to, to start making real significant changes in our mindset, shift that mind into a different place and a different perspective, and live from a kinder, more honest and open way in our world. And I think, if I can do my little bit here, by doing these talks at lunchtime to help motivate or help people feel a little bit more connected, a little less lonely and more splendidly isolated. That's what I want to do. So I think that's pretty much me for today. And I really appreciate everybody who's come on board and joined me and said hello. And I hope you've got something out of this. And if nothing else, please go to my my free downloads page, and which is in the notes below, the link below, and at least check out the digital minimalism guide. I knew I was going to stumble over that again. Digital minimalism guide, and also my other one, which is the 5-minute positive mindset guide, which is 10 pages, but it also has a link to the ebook and documents that I've created. So thank you all very much for joining me. Tomorrow, same bat time, same bat channel. I love saying that for some reason. I don't know why. It just reminds me of childhood, watching Batman growing up, and the Adam West Batman, not any of these movies. So tomorrow, 12 noon Pacific time. I really hope that you'll continue to join me, and we'll carry on talking about some things. One of the things that I've written about previously, I'd like to talk about tomorrow. So join me, and hopefully you'll get something out of that too. But thank you very much for your attention spans and for your participation. I really appreciate it. Take care, everybody. See you tomorrow.